loneliness, pornography, all these things are things we're all dealing with now, I think. You know, no one's quite sure what to do with technology. We love it. It brings us, for the most part, closer, but there's a lot of questions, like, you know, do you spy on your kids? Do you look at their web histories? Is it okay to bring a phone to why is it called disconnect?
Well, it was called disconnect because not about we should disconnect, but more about the disconnect between private and public and how we live online, and that sort of disconnect. It wasn't meant to be sort of the internet's bad and we should all disconnect. That's never going to happen. The stories, I don't know. They're just
You want to put the mic on?
It's too loud. The inspiration, it kind of just came from years ago, sitting at dinner with people and everybody had their phone out and sensing that that was changing. I think it's all happened so quickly that we don't even realize how fast technology keeps changing and evolving. And so that, I think, disconnect just keeps getting faster and greater. And so then a lot of the stories came from different things that are ripped from the headlines. I mean, the first inspiration was the girl who hung herself after the mother and the girl down the street pretended to be a boy. That was like 6 years ago, so that's when I started writing the script. And God, what are the other stories? The web porn cat, the sex kid came from...
Don't get into this one.
It's happening right now, guys. Let's give it up for him.
Okay. Yes. I'll take the next question. Go ahead. Yes. The question is for Mr. Bateman. How did you enjoy the challenge of a more serious role, and do you find it incredibly different than doing comedy?
It's certainly different, and I'm just very thankful that they kind of took a flyer on me and assumed that I could do something like this. And I want to thank the probably close to 3,000 guys who must have said no before you came. The challenge was using a little piece of technology, flipping through my iPhone and looking at pictures of, at the time, my first daughter. Now I've got 2 daughters, but my first daughter, and just looking at pictures of her over and over again before we shot a couple of the crying scenes, and like imagining horrible things. So try to make yourself cry on cue, like, hey, we're going to need you in about 10 minutes crying, so get ready. You know, doing drama's pretty tough. They say comedy's hard, but drama's pretty tough too, so.
Okay. There was another, go ahead, yes? Yeah. That's a good question. She's noting that you were a documentary filmmaker before. She's asking, was this brought to you, or did you seek it out? And do you ever think about returning to documentaries?
Documentaries, I think, they're still my first love. I love, filming real people, because just all you do is hit record, and it's the truth most of the time. I was attracted to this because it just seemed like something I would actually make, and be curious to make a documentary about. You know, a couple that get their identity stolen and become vigilantes. If I filmed that documentary, it would be riveting. You know, if I had access to real bullies, bullies are not bad people. They egg each other on, and it just happens. We've all, at some point, laughed at the expense of someone else. And if I had had access to that story as a documentarian, I would have been very interested to film it, but you wouldn't have been able to because you would have, we would have had to stop it. And thirdly, the story between Kyle and Nina is fascinating. This is something that there's thousands upon thousands of people. I mean, the internet, apparently, was forged by pornography. And so this was, this is one of the #1 businesses early on in the birth of the internet. And so it feels like it's a big elephant in the room. Nobody ever talks about the fact that 50%, according to statistics, over 50% of marriages end because of something that has to do with pornography. So this was an interesting way to explore that, that storyline, and these kids that are now going on and they just, all they do is they perform, and kids do it in dorm rooms. And, we researched all these things together. And so this would have been a fascinating documentary also to me. So I read both these stories, they all seemed like completely riveting. And the approach, I spoke a little bit about setting up 2 cameras and filming things and letting things go, but there was another approach, which was after, the script came, is that we sort of built a shadow cast, just to give any of the actors and actresses access to real people who'd gone through some of these things that they wanted. Paula met a woman who lost a child, and Frank met the head of cybercrimes at NYPD and spent time with him. And so this was sort of my only way of approaching fiction, was just to sort of retroactively turn it into, a documentary, and then try to film as much truth as I possibly could, and then let an editor, and help me figure out what felt really truthful and what wasn't truthful, but it's sort of retroactively, built out of headlines, and then back to, headlines, I guess, or back to real people. Yeah, that was very long-winded.